Hey everybody, welcome to this special edition, I guess you could call it, of the Punchline titled Who is the GOAT? And it's going to be like a 6-piece segment, and we're going to be talking about who the greatest fighter of all time is. And I started writing like a blog article thing about, I guess almost a year ago, last summer I think it was that I started, never got around to finishing it, so I thought, well, let's just pick it back up in these videos that I've been doing lately and start discussing it. We'll rank them in order, right, from 6 through 1. And I'm going to get a lot of hate for the number 6 guy that I put on here. I know I am. But it's going to be Conor McGregor. And did I do a top 6 instead of a top 5 just to include Conor? You bet your sweet ass I did. But he has a legitimate argument. And I think it's unfair to talk about who the greatest is without including him on this. And let me explain my logic behind this. Okay, so Conor is a guy who has only lost 1 fight in the UFC. I think he's lost 3 fights total throughout his professional career, and he's knocked out all but 2 opponents that he's beat in the UFC, and his only loss in the UFC is to Nate Diaz. That's not a bad loss, right? And it's 170 pounds, 2 weight classes above where he won a world title for the first time. And I was texting my buddy today, and it got me thinking about this. It's kind of what spurred me to do these videos. And first off, I want you to think about who the greatest 145-pounder ever is. The first thought that probably comes to your mind is Jose Aldo, right? And then after him, especially taking into consideration recent events, you probably got Max Holloway, right? Conor holds victories over both of them. And he took Max to a decision, but he knocked Jose out in 13 seconds. And I understand that that's not a lot of data, but you can't penalize him for winning too well, especially looking at Conor's track record and how many people he's knocked out throughout his career, right? So he's beaten the 2 best 145-pounders ever. He's also beaten Marcus Brimage, Dustin Poirier, Dennis Seaver, Diego Brandao, and is that it at 145? Other than Max and Jose, I think it might be. If I'm wrong, let me know. But now think about this. As far as skill goes, we're probably going to find out who the best 155-pounder ever is on April 7th when Khabib and Tony fight. But as it stands right now, the most successful 155-pounder might surprise you. I think he's got a legitimate argument for it, and I really think he deserves it. It's Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez has beat Michael Chandler. He had the no contest with Dustin Poirier, right? But then he beat Anthony Pettis, Justin Gaethje. He lost his UFC debut to Donald Cerrone, but it's your UFC debut, and it's Donald fucking Cerrone. Like, that's a tough fight to take as your first fight in the UFC. He's beat Rafael dos Anjos to win the title. He's beat Gilbert Melendez. He just beat Justin Gaethje recently. And he's the only man, as far as I know, to hold a title in both Bellator and the UFC. There's a very good argument that Eddie Alvarez is the greatest 155-pound fighter of all time as of right now. Certainly the most credentialed, I would say. And Conor beat him, and didn't just beat him, he made it look easy and knocked him out inside of 2 rounds. So Conor has a win over, in my opinion, credential-wise, right? Eddie's never fought Khabib or Tony, so we don't really know there yet. Like, that might be coming, who knows? But as of right now, strictly looking at credentials, I would say that Eddie Alvarez is the greatest 155-pounder of all time. Conor has beat him. And Conor has also beat the greatest 145-pounder of all time in Jose Aldo. He's also beat Max Holloway if you think Max is the greatest. I know that was years ago, but he still has a win over them both. Okay. Also, stepping out of the MMA world, he went 10 rounds with the greatest defensive boxer of all time in Floyd Mayweather. So it shows you that he's got a little bit, like, obviously he got outclassed and he got outworked and everything, and he got his ass beat, right? But it still shows you that, like, his skills are legitimate. Like, he's a true combat artist. And he also holds a win over Nate Diaz at 170 pounds, which, like I said, is 2 weight classes above what he started fighting in the UFC at. That's impressive. Like, I know Conor gets a lot of shit, and part of that's just because he's a star, right? But Conor has legitimate skills that put him in the discussion, in my opinion. And think about this. Khabib is, he's 25-0, I think, now? I mean, if you go back and watch the Gleison Tebow fight, kind of debatable, but they gave him the win either way, right? Unanimous decision on the judges' scorecard, whatever. Let's say I mean, either guy could win, but let's say this is what I think will push Conor. It'd be very hard to argue against him as the greatest. I know, and also I know that you guys listening to this, the number one thing that you probably have against Conor is title defenses, right? But does he really need them? Especially if he accomplishes what I'm about to talk about, and it's speculating, right? What if on April 7th, Khabib beats Tony in dominant fashion, and then what if Conor and Khabib fight in Russia in September and Conor knocks him out? How do you argue against him being... there's a very good argument that he's the greatest. And I know guys like John Jones, like Jones has a loss on his record, but it's like a disqualification, right? Like John Jones has never really lost a fight. And I know that Conor has a loss on his record, but when you're fighting at the pinnacle of the sport in MMA, like there are just so many ways to lose that it's bound to happen at some point, right? And it was Nate fucking Diaz. It was no joke. Nate's actually a terrible matchup for Conor. That's why it's so impressive that Conor went back and beat him in the rematch. Nate is long. He's better on the ground than Conor. Conor's most effective when he's striking, right? And Nate is both the Diaz brothers, Nate and Nick, they are phenomenal strikers, and Nate is longer than Conor. So a lot of the times Conor has a reach advantage over the guys he's fighting, especially guys like Chad Mendes. You know, he's bigger than Aldo. Like when you look at them, I think McGregor's bigger. So like that loss isn't bad, and you're fighting the top guys in the sport at a weight class that you've never fought at. You're carrying more body weight around. Like, you guys can call me a Conor dick rider all you want, and I probably am, but I don't know how you can talk about the greatest of all time and not include Conor somewhere on the list. It seems ridiculous to me that we hold it against him just because he's such a huge star and hasn't defended his titles. Promotion-wise, he's obviously the greatest, right? Like, he's the most popular. He draws pay-per-views in, and he's just like the biggest star ever. I always use the mom test, right? Like, GSP is not known as being like the pay-per-view king, right? But like, if I asked my mom who GSP was, she probably has no fucking clue. But she knows who Conor McGregor is. The world knows who Conor McGregor is. He's a star. But as far as actually being able to fight, he's legitimate too. Like, he's not just this icon, you know what I mean? Like, he's really, really good. Like, I don't know how else to... I can't emphasize it more. He's incredible. And he makes beating guys like Eddie Alvarez, who is no fucking joke, look easy. So go ahead, send your hate my way, your arguments against why Conor shouldn't be on this list, but I'm including him. Let me know what you think. Thank you.